Hi everyone, welcome you all. So in the today's video, I'll show you how to install Playwright. So before installing Playwright, the prerequisite is we need to have Node.js environment. And along with that Node.js, we need to also have VS Code editor, which is Visual Studio Code editor to write our automation script. So these are the two things which we have to install before installing Playwright. So to install Node.js, we need to download it from their official website. You can just search for Node.js and go to nodejs.org. And these are the current latest versions which are available on whichever operating system you are currently working. You can just download. So once you click on it, it will download the installer. And once you download the installer, you can just use this installer and you can install your Node.js. You don't need to run any commands. Just it will provide you the installer and just double click on the installer and go next. It will be installed. So if you have not installed this Node.js before, so I will provide the link in the description how to install Node.js and NPM, and along with the Visual Studio Code editor. You can just go through that video and you can just install Node.js and VS Code editor. So I already installed my Node.js, and as well as I also have VS Code editor on my system. So to check it, so you can just open the terminal. So we need to open the terminal, and in the terminal you can execute this command. So simply you can execute node-v, and this command will give you the current version which I have already installed on my system. Currently I have 16.17.0, and there is another command also you can use. You can say node-version. So this will also give the same version. So this is a current version which we have in my system. This is a Node.js version. And when you install Node.js, by default you will get npm package, which is Node Package Manager. And if you want to check the version npm-v, you can use, or I can use npm-version. So this will also give you the npm version. So this is the first prerequisite. We need to install Node.js, and once you install Node.js, by default you will get npm Node Package Manager. So later we will use this npm Node Package Manager to install other libraries, independent libraries. Okay, this is the first thing. Now the second prerequisite. So what's the first thing? We need to install Node.js, and the second thing is we need to have VS Code editor or Visual Studio Code editor. So we can also download this VS Code and we can install. And to download, install VS Code, you can just search for download Visual Studio Code editor. So whichever operating system you are currently working, you can just select that particular downloader version and can download. So these are the Windows and Mac. So whichever operating system currently you are using, you can just download that particular installer and you can install VS Code editor on your system. Again, I will provide the link in the description. You can just watch that video. Then you will know how to install VS Code editor on your Windows as well as Mac OS. Okay, this is the official website. So once we have this Node.js and also VS Code editor, now we can start configuring our project. So let me open my VS Code editor, which I already installed. So this is my VS Studio Code editor. So currently it don't have any project. It's completely empty. So now we need to install Playwright, and we need to first create a new project and then we have to install Playwright. So step one, we have installed Node.js, VS Code, and the third step, once we have these two prerequisites, the next thing is we need to create folder project, or we can say we can create project folder somewhere in your system, and that particular folder we have to open in VS Code editor. So how to create a new project folder and open in VS Code, I'll show you. So you can just go to the any folder on your system. So currently I'm going to my users folder. So inside my users folder, I'm going to create a new folder, right? So I'll name it as, let me say, password. And now I'm name it as, this folder is, I can say, Playwright automation. And this particular folder we have to open in my VS Code editor. So we can simply drag and drop. So what you can do is, as soon as you open your VS Code editor, just drag and drop this folder like this. So once you have done, your folder is successfully open on your VS Code editor. Currently, you don't have anything. It is just a folder. So once you click on it, you can just select this trust the others of all files, the parent folder users. Yes, I trust the others. Fine. So now we successfully open the folder on your VS Code editor. And this is the third step. Now the fourth step is we have to install Playwright. We have to install Playwright, and we can install Playwright in multiple ways. And we can directly use VS Code editor terminal, or we can use Mac terminal or Windows command prompt. And there is another option which is also available through VS Code extensions. We can install Playwright. There are multiple ways are there. So we'll see how to install Playwright through terminal using terminal, or if you're working on Windows, so you need to use Windows command prompt. So how to install Playwright using terminal? So to install Playwright using terminal, so they have provided the documentation. Get started here. How to install Playwright? They have the simple command they have given. npm, by using node package manager, we can execute this command. npm init playwright @latest. And latest in the sense, by default, it will install latest version of Playwright. And if you want to install specific version of Playwright, you can just specify the version number here. So this particular command we have to execute through terminal. So this is the command we have to execute through terminal. This will able to install Playwright. And the terminal in the sense, we have two different type of terminals. So one is we can directly open the terminal from here. You can just search for terminal. And once you open the terminal, you need to open that folder. So whatever folder you have just created and open in your VS Code editor, so this particular folder you have to open, and from there we can execute that command. Or else VS Code editor is also provided a built-in terminal. We can also use the terminal to execute all the commands. Now, if you want to use VS Code editor terminal, you can just go here, terminal, open the new terminal. And now you can see this is a new terminal which is got opened. So from here also you can execute all the commands. Now to install Playwright, I'm going to execute this command, which is npm init playwright @latest. So by default, it will execute, it will install latest version of Playwright. So I'm just pasting out here and then just execute. So once executed this command, it will start installing Playwright. And before installing it, will ask you some options. So create here, you can see here, create Playwright. So this is the latest version of Playwright. And what it is saying, okay to proceed. So this is the package by default, it will try to install. I'm okay to proceed, yes, and say enter. Now it will ask you which programming you want to use. Like, do you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript? So whichever language you want to use, you can just select that one. So if you want to use JavaScript, you can just simply type JavaScript. So by default, it is selected TypeScript. We need to select JavaScript. So by simply pressing down and upper arrow key, you can select whichever language you want to use. So currently TypeScript is by default selected. I'm just pressing down arrow key, so which is selected JavaScript, and then press enter. Now it is asking where to put your end-to-end test. So by default, this will create a test folder under your project. So all the tests, whatever we create, will be part of this particular folder. So this is a default folder which will be created by the Playwright. So you can have this folder name as it is. Now it is asking one more option, add a GitHub Actions workflow. So this option is required when you're working with the Git workflows. And later we will see this option. For now, by default, it is selected false. Now the next option is install Playwright browsers. Can be done manually via npx Playwright install, yes or no. So by default, Playwright will have their own browsers, and it is asking us to install those browsers. So by default, if we say true, all browsers will be by default installed by Playwright internal browsers. Or later, if you want to install our own browsers, you can just skip, you can say false here, and then you can install our own browsers by executing this npx Playwright install command. So by default, it is true. So let it install their own browsers. Now press enter. Now, once it is done, it is started installing Playwright. Now, once it is installed, which will create some files by default in your project. So let us try to explore the files. What are the files they have created inside the project? Still, it is executing. You can see added 4 different packages. and audited 5 packages in 1 second. So like this, it will create a different type of packages, a different type of files in our project. Now, if I look at here, it is clearly saying all the commands. So this is a command which we are going to use to run the test, which are created under test folder. npx playwright test -UI. So this is used for start the interactive UI mode. And this command we will execute. This command we can use to run our test only on the desktop Chrome. Similarly, there are some more options, some more commands they have suggested in this window. So once the execution is completed, now let us look at what are the files they have created. Let me close my terminal. So this is a project structure by default created. So if I look at this folder structure, the first one is node modules. So this is the most important because as soon as you install Playwright, all Playwright related modules will be part of this node modules. And if I expand the Playwright, so you can see all the modules which are installed will be part of this particular node modules. And the second one is a test folder. So this is a default folder where all the tests will be created, all spec files will be created, and they have given some sample spec file example.spec.js. This is a sample test case, Playwright test case in JavaScript, which is given as a demo purpose. And in future, all the tests we are going to write inside this test folder. Now, the next one is test examples. If I expand this, there is one more spec file they have given for example. So this is for demo purpose they have given. And in the test folder also, they have created some sample example of spec.js. Along with this, there is one more example they have given under test examples. So this is the one, demo to do app.spec.js. Okay, and apart from this, there are some more configuration files which is got created, and mainly playwright.config.js. Okay, so this particular file will manage the project configuration basically. Okay, if I look at this, so here test directory is /test. That means what? All the tests, whatever we create by default will be part of the test. So here we need to create all the tests. And when you run the test, by default, the path will be referred here. So this is the testing directory default path. And fully parallel equal to true. So by default, Playwright will execute the test in parallel mode. By default, all the tests will be executed in the parallel mode. So that option, if you want to configure, you can configure it. If I make it as false, then again, all the tests will be executed in the UI mode. Similarly, there are some more options which are available in this file. Basically, this will control the project configuration. The whole project will be controlled by using this particular configuration file. And most important thing, this one, configure projects for major browsers. So these are the built-in browsers which are provided by Playwright: Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. Chromium is which will execute all Chromium-based browsers, and this is Firefox. This is for Safari for Mac users. And currently, these are the browsers on tests will be executed on these 3 browsers parallelly. So that configuration is also part of this particular configuration. Later, if you want to change or if you want to add a new browsers, or if you want to remove the existing one, you can do that. So this is the main configuration file, which is created automatically once you install your Playwright. And there is one more file called package.json. It is like a form.xml file in your Maven project. Here we will specify all the dependencies module, dependent modules in future. If you want to install any new modules required in a Playwright test, once we have installed, so the new entries will be added or dependencies will be added in the package.json. This is another important. This is basically node project management file. The whole project we will manage by using this file. And config.js is a configuration file. So all the stuff we can configure like browsers, parallel execution or not, and test directories, all those things we can configure in the playwright.config. This is a configuration file, and package.json is a project management file of Node.js projects. So whenever you create a new Node.js model, Node.js related project, so these files will always be there. And especially for Playwright, this is a new configuration file is got generated. Okay, so these are the basic folder structure which is got created as soon as you have installed Playwright. Okay, so if you want to know exactly what is a version of Playwright is got successfully installed, so okay, again you can open the new terminal, and here you can execute that command npm playwright -v. So this command will give you the current version of Playwright which you are going to install. So this is the latest version 8.15. When I'm doing this video, so the current version is 8.15.0, which is the current version of Playwright, which is showing. So this is how we can simply install Playwright through terminal, which is provided by VS Code editor, or we can also use Mac command prompt or Mac terminal, or if you are working on Windows, you can also use Windows command prompt. Through that Windows command prompt, you can just navigate to the project folder, and there you can execute all the commands. Now we can just recap. We created your folder structure and open in the VS Code editor. Then we have installed Playwright by using terminal. So just we have executed this command npm init playwright latest. So once we have successfully installed, it is by default created few files. One is package.json. This is the most important file. So this is for node project management file. This is node project management file. So here we can do all the dependencies we can add. And one more important file which is got generated playwright.config.js. Playwright.config.js. So this is basically Playwright specific configuration file. Playwright specific configuration file. And there is one more folder which is automatically created called test. So in this, we can create all the Playwright tests. Okay. So if you want to check the Playwright version, whichever is installed, we can simply execute this command. A Playwright version, I can say npm playwright-v. So this command will returns the current version of, or we can say it is written installed version of Playwright. Installed version of Playwright. So that's it. So the simple installation we can do through the terminal. We can use either external Mac terminal, or we can use built-in terminal within VS Code editor. Or if you are working on Windows, you can use Windows command prompt. So this is the one way we can set up Playwright project in VS Code editor. So there is another approach also there. So this is through command prompt using terminal. Now I'll show you how to install Playwright using VS Code extension. So there is another way. We have install Playwright using VS Code extension. So install Playwright using VS Code extension. So what we need to do is go to VS Code editor. So this project is already configured. So we need to create a new project. So what I'll do is I will create a new folder. So let's go to users folder. Now this project is already configured. Now I'm going to create a new project. So privilege is required. So once you create a new folder, and I'm giving a different name, this I say Playwright automation project underscore VS Code extension. Okay, so this is a new project name which I have given, new folder I have created. So now we need to configure Playwright with this particular project. Simply what you can do is you can open the folder in your Cypress. You can just go back here. You can just close the terminal in the VS Code editor. So you can just explore, and by default it is open previous project, right? So if you want to open the new folder, so simply you can drag and drop. So with whatever folder you just created, you can just drag and drop the folder inside the VS Code editor. So currently we have old file, right? Old folder. So we need to go here, open the folder, and just browse this folder. So now I have opened a new folder on my VS Code. So currently this project doesn't have any Playwright configuration, right? So now we need to install Playwright on this particular project. So to install Playwright in this product through extension, we can do that. So through VS Code editor extension, we can do that. So if I look at this Visual Studio Code, there is an option called extensions here. When you click on these extensions, you can search for the Playwright extension. So you can just search for Playwright. And once you search for Playwright, you can see here, Playwright test for VS Code, right? You can search for this option, Playwright test for VS Code. And once you selected this option, click on install. So once you click on install, so it will start installing Playwright test for VS Code. So it is successfully installed. So if you want uninstall, you can just click on uninstall. So it will be uninstalled. And now currently my Playwright is successfully installed on my VS Code editor. So once you have done this, the next step is what? Just extension is got installed. Still, we have not configured our project with the extension. So again, go back to your folder. So here there is an option called view. Go to the view here, and there is command palette. Go to the command palette. In the command palette, you can just search for Playwright. So just now we have installed that extension, right? Just search for Playwright. And you can see test install Playwright. So this is the second option you can see, install Playwright. So you can just select that option. And by default, all the options it will show. You can just look at here. And I'm going to use JavaScript. So I can just select the checkbox also. And once it is selected, and just click on OK. That's it. So it is start installing Playwright. Just like before what you have done through command prompt, through terminal, same commands, same sequence of commands, it is executed. If I look at this execution, you can see npm init playwright @test, and all the browsers by default selected, and JavaScript is also got selected. And you can just look at here, this is the package.json file is got created, and other configuration files are successfully created. So this is another way to create a new project with a Playwright. So to install Playwright by using VS Code extension. Now same folder structure is got created, same playwright.config.js. You can see here. Okay, and then package.json. This is the project configuration file. This is Playwright configuration file. This is the Nodejs project configuration file. And again, same test folder is got created, and all the node modules will be part of this folder, right? So this is how we need to just install Playwright, either by using terminal or by using VS Code extension. Okay, fine. So now I have one sample test here, example.spec.js. So the simple test, they have given some sample test. And to run this test, how can we run? So again, through the terminal, we can run it. So to run this, what you can do is, let me just close this my terminal, and you can open the latest or new terminal. And this is my new terminal. So if you want to execute the test through this terminal, we can execute the test by running the command. Simple, I can say npx. This is a command to run our Playwright test. Npx playwright and test. So this is a simple command which we can execute. Npx playwright test. So by default, this command will pick all the tests which are created inside the test folder. Why? Because in the playwright.config.js, by default, it is provided test directory is this one. / is representing current project location. Test is a folder. So this is a configuration which is mentioned in the playwright.config.js. So when you run this particular command, by default, it will pick all the tests which are created under the test folder. Now let me run this command. So once you run this, it will start executing the test. Can just look at this. It is started executing the tests. Running 6 tests using 5 workers. So here you can just look at this example specs.java. How many tests we have here is 2 tests. So this is one test and this is another test. In the coming session, I will elaborate what exactly it is. So this is one test and this is another 2 tests. Totally we have a 2 tests and 3 different browsers and parallel execution, right? So totally 6 are got executed and totally 5 workers. And after successfully execution, it is basically executed on headless mode. So by default, Playwright will execute all the tests in a headless mode. We cannot see any browser launching or any UI we cannot see. So all the tests by default will be executed in headless mode itself. That's a default option. Okay, so if you still want to run in the headed mode, you can just run the same command, just like this, npx playwright test -- headed. So this option we need to provide. And this will open the browsers and we can see execution on the browser. So now we can see all the browsers parallelly, it is open and execution is done. It's very faster and within 2 seconds, everything is done. So all are executed. So this is how we can execute the test in headed mode if you want. But by default, it will execute on the headless mode. Okay. So once it is executed, the HTML report by default generated by Playwright. Simply we have to execute this command. Okay. So to run the test, we have to execute the command, run the playwright test. So to run the playwright test, simply npx playwright and then test. So this is the command to run the playwright test. And if you want to run in the headed mode, you can simply say npx playwright test --- headed. So this is the option which we have to provide. And once it is executed, if you want to see the report, by default HTML report will be generated. And if you want to customize the report, or if you want to use any third-party report, still we can use it. So the other command is npx playwright show. So this is the command show -report. So this will automatically show you the HTML report once execution is complete. npx playwright show report. Now, if I look at the VS Code, so the same command they are suggesting to open the last HTML report, you have to execute this command, same command. So now let me run this command npx playwright show report. Then we can see the HTML report. Simply execute npx playwright show -report. So now it is starting generating a report. And this particular report will automatically open. So let me just run this command one more time. Let me run the test once again. And without headed mode. Okay, so my tests are executed. Now, if you want to see the report, this is a simple command we have to execute. You can say npx playwright show -report. This is the command npx playwright show -report. So once we executed this command, so we can see this is a report URL localhost :9323. This is a report. And you can see all the tests are executed. 3, 4, 5, 6 tests are executed. And you can look at here, first 2 tests are executed on the Chromium, and other 2 tests are executed on the Firefox, and last 2 are executed on the WebKit. So like this, the test is got designed. So this is how we can simply see the HTML report from Playwright execution. So later I will also show you some more other type of reportings and reports. And this is a basic report, HTML report, which is generated by the Playwright. Okay, so this is a command which we have to execute to see the report itself. And we no need to write any specific code for generating the report. Okay, so this is how we can just set up and configure Playwright project in VS Code editor. In the next sessions, we will see how to write a basic test cases and how can we execute. Okay, so that we are going to see in the next session. So that's all for today's session. Thanks for watching. We'll see in the next session.